This whole podcast is really meant to be a resource for the next generation.
Right.
Do you have any sort of tips or anything else you kind of typically give for the next generation if you're mentoring somebody or you're kind of helping somebody get their feet under them?
In today's paper-driven age, for the heavy civil division, the first 5 to 7 years are the most important. Get in the field, work with the foreman, try to get that time in the field. But gaining all that knowledge in the field is what's going to serve us the next 20 years of your career, to where you can sit down with owners, superintendents, estimators, and speak intelligently about the intricacies of these operations. And that's relearning. That's one thing I see more and more today is that we're losing guys to have time to get in the field and learn with the foreman, learn with the superintendents, learn how to schedule work, learn how to plan work. They get stuck behind desks pushing paper, and it's horrible. It's really robbing them.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the CM Miniatures podcast. My name is Matt Graves, and my co-host each week is Kyle Grandell. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, not much, Matt. Just here for the podcast. How about you?
Same. How's everything been going for you?
It's been going great, man. It's been a busy week. Lots of proposals going out the door, so I am fried.
That's an exciting week, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So this week's guest is an old college rugby buddy of mine. We played against each other, and I think we actually played together a few times, maybe like a select team, and I played with you guys a couple of tournaments and stuff. But an old buddy, Jess Rosen. What's going on, Jess?
How y'all doing?
Doing great. You're doing great. Good to meet you.
I'm sorry, too.
So for people who don't know who you are, do you want to just give a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jess Rosen. Went to college, Texas Tech, and got my civil engineering degree, and then jumped right into heavy civil and transportation industry, working as a field engineer, and then spent the last 13 years working through projects all across Texas, heavy civil transportation projects. Then jumped and stepped up a bit and worked for some bigger commuter rail type jobs around the country, and then started pursuing cable stayed bridges and worked a lot as a field engineer, and then more as an APM and project manager, managing big complicated builds. And then, like I said, took me all over the country, and now I'm back in Texas and chasing a little bit of the same type of work, and trying to do some more for the smaller company I'm working for now.
That's cool, man. I think you're our first civil roadway guy. We've had a lot of building construction guys, and some other finance and those sort of things. But I'm excited. It's gonna be a little different conversation.
I've listened to your podcast, and especially the ones with the design builds guys. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a little bit different interpretations of some of the design build stuff. So that's mainly what I've been a part of, is mega project design builds ranging from anywhere from $100 million to $1.5 billion, mostly around the $1 billion range.
Very cool.
So a lot of moving parts.
I got to ask you, Jess, how do you feel about electricians?
Oh, man, they've got opinions, and they understand scope gap. I tell you what.
That's the first time we've heard that one, Matt. I like it.
They really know how to expose scope gaps.
I'm a little envious of Jess, though, because electricians don't play a big role in the roadway work.
I tell you what, they can be showstoppers when they want to be, and they're busy, especially here in Central Texas.
Hey, what I heard Jess say is that we're crafty, and I'll take it. I will take that.
They'll let you know when there's a blocked conduit embedded in concrete. I tell you that.
Yes, they will.
And they'll tell you with a change order too, I'm sure, right?
Will.
They'll tell you, handing you the paper.
Just one if you're lucky.
So I know you got a lot of experience on some big mega projects and that sort of thing like you just talked about. So we want to bring you on and talk about specifically like kind of how to be innovative to improve constructability. I'm sure you've had a lot of experience of these mega projects having mega issues.
Something mega issues, something mega opportunities. There's, the more complicated the structure, the more complicated the project. Outside of, phase work, everybody sees it on the highways. What is going on? Why are they building half a bridge in the air right here? And well, that's planned. That's somebody had an idea saying, let's get this work done ahead of time. So there, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into phase work. But then when you really want to get down to it, and this is what I've been doing for the last, you know, really 8 years, was on big cable stay bridges, tied arch type bridges. There's a lot of room for working with designers on design builds and coming up with the better concepts, coming up with the more efficient, more economical concepts. You know, you're pretty much the voice of, okay, do the materials that are being called out in the plans, does that make sense? Or is there long lead times? Can we change it? What can we do to be what can we do on the side of the contractor to speed the process up, if you would, too? Then he goes even deeper, because then, you know, on the plans, everybody's favorite comment, you know, to be provided by a contractor. Well, when you're on a cable stay bridge or some type of big structure, that could be a costly item. I mean, you could be talking about shore towers that are in the $100 million range as far as operational costs. So that goes into a lot of fabrication details, assembly details, just how's it work with the operation in general. So that's where a lot of effort, that's where a lot of my time has gone, is working through the details of the things that are also in design and in the construction engineering portion of it. So
Jess, I haven't done a whole lot of public work, and very little to your scale. What's like a typical project size, like magnitude, as far as maybe, you know, budgets, but also like duration?
So let's say, I mean, so more of my projects that I've been on. So I've been on about 8 mega projects, mega project design builds around the country, and they range from generally the $750 million to $1.3 billion range. They're always around that $1 billion mark. So as far as durations, I mean, we've had some that are jacked up in price because we got to get it done in 2 years. There's a big toll road in Houston that took, I think it was like 40 miles of toll with 6 major interchanges, and that was a 2-year project. And so it took a lot of resources and effort to really push down on that. Or some projects will last 7 years, and that is a long time to be on one project. And it's very rare for people to start that project and finish that project. So it's almost like a career.
I appreciate that. I mean, mine in the industrial manufacturing realm, I mean, there may be like 6 months to a year and a half, and after a year, I'm dragging. So I can only imagine a 5 to 7 year project.
Yeah, typically you hope for a good 3 years on a project.
That's a long
and then
time.
Yeah, 3 years on a project. I mean, it's a long time, and you hope that you're kind of pulled off of it if you start that project, you would kind of want to be pulled off of it before the punch list hits, and you're usually working on something else.
So a project of that size, as far as duration, I can only imagine there's a lot of like management strategy behind that too, as far as like picking the resources and then having a plan for turnover and stuff like that too. Is that right?
There can be, and it's becoming more of a, I won't say a problem, but more of just a day-to-day occurrence, is that turnover. It's a lot of hours. It's construction, you know, construction doesn't turn off. So yeah, it is a lot of hours. And then you end up having to plan, I call it get hit by the bus, you know, always make sure you're well documented on your side, and in case somebody decides to leave, and you got to pick up slack, and it's become part of the process.
Great point.
When you're doing projects like that and you're planning for changeover, right? If you're doing like a commercial project and it's a 1-year project or something like that, which is a lot of stuff I've done, you're really not expecting for the project manager to change over and all that sort of stuff. So you talk about, you know, preparing to get hit by the bus documentation. Like, what are some things that you might really be doing and knowing that you're not going to be there for the full time?
So, you know, one nasty part of some of these mega projects is that they can tend to lead into claims with the designer. Everybody's sue happy. You know, from a field engineer's perspective, you know, we try to keep them building logs. We want them to be organized, so to a level where everybody understands the same format of things, you know, on shared documents and stuff like that. And that's where you see a lot more development in the document control systems, and you know, like your Procores and your Autodesk 360s and builds and stuff like that. But when it comes to a management level, well, you're also, let's say constructability reviews. What I'm doing with designers, or what I've done with designers, is that if I see something in the plans during a 30, 60, 90% review or 100% review before it's RFC'd, get that comment on paper, because if you call out that comment, they don't address it, it's CYA, right? Now you brought it to light. Sometimes they'll follow up with it, or they won't follow up with it, right? But you've got it documented, you got it saved, and now if that issue comes to light and then start costing you money, well, you can look back and say, listen, we're not paying for your time on addressing this RFI because it's been in your court for quite a while and you didn't catch it or follow up on it. So that's one item. It can go deeper to claims of the owners, claims with stakeholders, claims with municipalities, and goes, somebody's going to have a problem with something, or somebody's going to want time back for something, especially if you're going over the course of 3 years. And as a project lingers for 3 to 4 to 5 years, you gotta keep that timeline. You always gotta try to keep it open and close on issues and get it well documented.
I was going to say, yeah. Sorry. Just going to say that. I mean, I can certainly appreciate that too. That's documentation is always a big thing on manufacturing side, because we're always starting projects before the design's done, and I'm sure you've seen that a lot too. But the changes, just documenting the changes and getting them verified and actually in the right hands too can be a challenge. Having the systems in place to make sure that when we do get drawings out to the field staff, that, I mean, are they even working off of the right issue drawings? Little issues like that all the time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, make sure labor craft, they're all coding their time appropriately. I mean, it all goes back to, is it researchable? Is it findable in the end? There's a lot of day to day. We're in a document driven society now, and information overload almost, where you got to keep up with the little things so you can look back in the past. But yeah, it's become half the job is just pushing paper.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's where it's got. A lot of it's just documenting up, being prepared for the lawsuit, and hopefully it never comes.
Yeah, no, it is. It's unfortunate. So, but there are. I mean, there's. We were talking about basically on topic. It's been one of the greatest satisfactions in being that person that has a lot of experience with the types of structures we work with, is being innovative. I have an innovative mind. I would gladly give up a daily routine just to go create something new, and that's actually what I've been doing the past few years, is just any ideas I have, new ways to form, new ways to set girders, new ways to form overhang or form concrete, new ways, means and methods. I've developed custom form systems with farm equipment attached to the side to make it faster. The sky's the limit, and you're only restricted by your own abilities or your own motivation.
Would you say that you're seeing more innovation in certain areas than others? Are there any trends right now in the civil world that you're seeing?
There are. So for one thing, we've been trying. There's a few things. So I've been an active member of PTI, the Post Tensioning Institute, and ASBE, American Segmental Bridge Institute, where basically and that's been around for 20, 30 years. And when you sit in these conferences and you talk with your peers and coworkers about things, new ideas come to light. Everybody's looking for a way to build it bigger and faster. So you've seen some headlines of bridges that are built to the side, off the side of the road, and then they're brought in with big SBMTs, big mobile units that they just pull the span on the new place and drop it in place, and there you have a bridge over a weekend. So that's an accelerated bridge concept. So ABC, everybody's looking for new ways to speed some of these things up and not hinder traffic. And owners love that. They love the new technical concepts. How can you not affect traffic or ship channel traffic or stakeholders, whatever the case may be. So the opportunities lie there. But sometimes you're sitting there saying, okay, well, you got to shut down a little bit of traffic so I can build this thing. No, we don't want to. Oh, all right. Okay. Do it between the hours of 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. Great.
You see that, there's such parallels there too, because a lot of buildings, you go into an existing facility that needs to stay operational, right? And you got to do a remodel. Like, well, we don't want to impact our current operations, but remodel our building. Like, okay.
It sounds like an HEB kind of thing. They're always like, we got to keep the aisles open. Okay.
Yeah, don't shut anything down, but remodel our restrooms. But make sure we have all our restrooms. Like,
Right.
This is magic,
So, no, the same thing goes with owners on the heavy civil side. Is they care about the public and for all good reasons. I mean, they want clean job sites. They want accessibilities. They don't want any development traffic. Here we are in Austin right now, and there's traffic everywhere. But try not to create more traffic. Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's got to get worse before it gets better sometimes.
It does. So, I mean, there's are you all familiar with post-tensioning in the commercial industry?
Not really.
Okay.
In building construction, not roadway stuff, but yeah.
Okay. So, going back to the topic of seeing some innovations, there's been a couple of patents put out there with modifying girders that create the overhangs on the outside of flyovers and direct connects. That limits it reduces time and materials and efforts to create that same thing. So it's precast. So really what it is driving precast implementations. Like if you wanted to, you could drill the drill shafts in some of these structures and you could precast the columns and then you post tension them after the fact and then have it done in a day, if you get it all erected right. So rather than taking 3 or 4 days. Same thing with caps. I mean, so there's a lot of implementation. It comes down to cost. It always comes down to cost, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? But
that's what I always tell clients. They always say, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "I can do anything for a certain amount of money." All it takes is money.
Yeah, all it takes is money. But yeah, it's there's avenues and there's opportunities, and construction being. Well, you're still pouring liquid rock and making the same rock and the same wall you've been doing for quite a while. Well, yeah, but can we do it for less money or can we do it more efficiently? That's been the driver too. People talk about 3D printed structures. Actually, I'm looking into that for a buddy of mine up in Alaska. I have to get well versed and see if I can generate a list of questions for that. But there's a lot of things out there that types of form systems. There's always a need somewhere.
Are they 3D printing roadways now?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is for some remote cabin structures up in Alaska.
I got you. Okay. I've seen the houses and stuff, but I didn't know if they're trying to get it into the civil world, the roadway world or not. I can't imagine you take the beating that roads take.
Yeah. I mean, when you get into concrete too, there's a lot of science in concrete that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, when you're mixing up, working with consultants on 10,000 psi mixes with chloride diffusion. I mean, what was it? High permissibility rate or what was it? High permissibilities. Anyway, it's a hell of a science as well.
Oh, it is. When you're doing constructability reviews and stuff like that and trying to be innovative, do you have a methodology where you go through and you're kind of when you say you first get on a project and you're looking for ways to innovate? Do you have a certain way, like a methodology that you go through to
I do
process? I
do, and it's funny you asked that. So I'm a visual guy. I can look at plans, and they got to be printed out, and they have to have a red pen, and they have to be in front of me. No computer stuff. I can't handle it. But what I do, I'm a big 3D modeler. So I can 3D model an entire interchange, and I use that to think through the next 15 steps of things and say, okay, this clearance is going to be an issue at step 7, and this clearance is going to be an issue at 15. This, there's going to be access issues with this. This phase doesn't work for us. So if I see a complicated, zone or area or a structure in sense, I will 3D model it out. That's my tool of reference because it allows me to, number one, explain the situation with visuals, because a lot of times people get lost up in words because they don't know it as well as I do clearly because I studied it.
Right.
So I use an easy 3D model to represent, okay, this is why this is a problem. This is why the construction sequence is a problem, because if you support it from here, you can't get in it, or you can't get around it, or nobody can get around it, or it interrupts phasing, or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times I use Google SketchUp. That's it. Free and easy. Just go to town. Just make sure your graphics card can handle a bigger model. So I promote that with a lot of my young engineers. I said, listen, draw it out. It's probably not the most favorable. It's going to take you a little time, but draw it out. See what you think.
No, that's pretty. I was gonna say it's pretty good too, because when you can build it virtually, especially if you can't build it in your head, a lot of people are taking like the 2-dimensional drawings and trying to. I mean, I'm not a civil guy, I'm not a roadway guy, but every now and then you get into it and you have a little bit of roadway stuff. And I'm looking at those drawings. I'm like, I'm used to seeing architectural drawings and structural drawings. And I look at that, I'm like, it's like kind of rethink how it even goes together, and it's a little different. So
right. I mean, a lot of times when we work through complex structures, whereas it's real dense construction, or real dense areas of construction. The designer's obligated to provide a construction sequence of sense. Steps 1, 2, and 3, and 4, especially if it requires special shorings or special attention. And so that's the first thing I jump on. It's like, okay, can we build it? Because a designer, I'm sorry, I'll find holes no matter what. I mean, so working through that sequence is a big deal, because when that work comes up on a job and you're 2 years into the job, and all of a sudden it's going to take another 6 to 8 weeks to rethink the construction sequence because it wasn't looked at. Now you're paying for that time, and you have crews in the field, and now it's affecting the progress of work. So, no, but Google SketchUp, big advocate of it. There's other softwares out there too, but there's ways to manage quantities. If you draw it well enough, you have enough time, you can print out reports for takeoffs. You can import it. I use it to import it with the designer to create 3D models for lift plans, for big structures. It's very transferable between the CAD softwares and the microstations and the Teklas, the SolidWorks, the whole 9 yards.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know Google SketchUp was that advanced. I didn't know you could do quantity takeoffs.
Sorry, it's not Google SketchUp anymore. It's Trimble. But
gotcha. Okay, yeah, Tim.
Sorry. I've been a long time subscriber.
Gotcha. You were talking about using Google SketchUp kind of as a tool that you give to kind of your younger professionals coming up. Do you have any other tips or things usually? Because this whole podcast is really meant to be a resource for the next generation.
Right.
Do you have any sort of tips or anything else you kind of typically give for the next generation, that if you're mentoring somebody or you're kind of helping somebody get their feet under them?
In today's paper-driven age, for the heavy civil division, the first 5 to 7 years are the most important. Get in the field, work with the foreman. Try to get that time in the field, because the 5 to 7 years of experience, and 7's a long. I mean, I took it 13 because I'm not, or what I loved it, but gaining all that knowledge in the field is what's going to serve us the next 20 years of your career, to where you can sit down with owners, superintendents, estimators, and speak intelligently about the intricacies of these operations. And that's relearning. I mean, that's one thing I see more and more of today, is that we're losing guys to have time to get in the field and learn with the foreman, learn with the superintendents, learn how to schedule work, learn how to plan work. They get stuck behind desks pushing paper, and it's horrible. It's really robbing them.
I've seen that in the commercial world, or in the building construction commercial world, where it's the same thing. You get on these bigger projects that may last a 5-year program, and you'll have a project engineer fresh out of school, and he's responsible for the structure, right? And that's all he knows. That's all he learns. And he's just pushing submittals and pushing RFIs for 3 years. And he's not getting a very broad experience, right? And I can imagine on these mega projects, if somebody, you say 5 to 7 years, get out in the field, he may be on one project for 5 years. And he's only really seeing one set of constraints, and he's only planning one project, and he's not getting all the reps. And so I don't know. How can these bigger companies, are they putting thought in that when they're developing the people of like, hey, we got to get you multiple experiences, or are they just throwing them out there to be productive?
I worked on one of our mega projects that took a while, and we created a cross training program.
Okay.
So we have a good connection. We actually created a cross training program where when we're not managing turnaround, God forbid, we actually get the opportunity to take a structures engineer, field engineer, or a drainage engineer and say, okay, guys, you have 2 months to work kind of hand in hand. And then for 6 months, you're switching places. And then 2 months after that, you're switching back. And then we do that. We'll do that with our cost management system. Like sometimes our cost management engineers that are young and learning the cost management side of things, we'll do that with drainage structures, roadway guys, paving guys. We like to try to cross check. That's always a goal on these mega projects that last a while, because we don't want people to be pigeonholed into knowing really well how to do curb and gutter or sidewalks, because that doesn't develop a manager very well. So no, there's always an initiative on these big scale jobs to try to help these engineers gain a lot of experience. Now, my biggest thing that I like to promote too is that you're limited. My saying is you choose your level of involvement. And that being is like, if you see opportunities on a Saturday to learn a dirt operation, get out there. No one's going to push you to make you do it. All right, I will maybe, but get out there. If you have a little bit of time and you want to be on a paving operation at night over for bridge decks, get out there. See how to set up a pump. See how to set up, traffic. See what they do to set up the slabs. If you have a few 30 minutes on a bridge deck before pour, we'll tell you a lot. But you choose your level of involvement. If you want to go home at 6 o'clock every day, you're going to have a hard time gaining those X factors, that little extra knowledge. So it's like I said, first 5 to 7 years, ask all the questions in the world and do your best.
That's dead on there, Jess. And for anybody listening, I mean, it's kind of a theme we've been playing here on a few episodes now, is kind of putting yourself out there, not being afraid to do things. But I like the way you said it even better, which is about choosing your involvement, because I mean that's really what it is. If you're motivated, and if you're really aggressive about learning the next thing, and you keep learning and growing, that's going to create more opportunity too down the road.
Absolutely. Like I wanted, luckily I started working in Texas, which is a non-union state, and you couldn't on a Saturday, you couldn't find me at home. I'd be on a dozer or an excavator, just pushing dirt around, just learning how they work. Or I've spent Saturdays up there on the bridge decks tearing apart overhang and handrails with my own hammer. I found a hammer and I said, I'm gonna go do this on a Saturday. It takes a level of self-motivation to do it, but it pays off. Boy, does it pay off.
Well, and you also get those opportunities too to probably see things that you wouldn't see. I mean, it could even just be as simple as the different crews you're working with that are also there with you. You kind of get a feel for who else is really in it with you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I mean, really, the big companies, they want to promote their basics, and the basics are the basics, and we a lot of times we forget about the basics. How to properly claim quantities and gauge productions, and understanding costs, understanding man hours and manpower and equipment costs. I mean, that's all factor into things, and they're all generated from an estimate somehow. But understanding those items, that's where you want to ask questions. You want to tie the physical to the paperwork. It's a big deal. And then we talked about 3D modeling. I was like, no one said that just this is what you need to do. You just do it. Just get it. Do it. I mean, no one taught me how to work through CAD Civil 3D and MicroStation and Tekla and all these other softwares. You just start watching YouTube, boy. Just watch you pay off.
It's almost the same for me when I got out of college. I mean, that's kind of been the theme of the conversations too. Is like, right, you get out of college and like you don't really know anything. You think, I mean, I have a civil engineering degree, but I had no intention of being a civil engineer. So I got out of civil engineering and I went to like work in construction, right? And like I didn't know shit. I didn't know RFIs, I didn't know submittals, I didn't know anything. And I'd be sitting in a meeting, and the first company I worked for was a lot of federal contracting stuff too. So I'm sitting in a meeting and they're throwing out acronyms and this and that and different words, and like they're speaking French. I don't know what they're saying, but same thing. I would just like write down every word or acronym I heard that I didn't know, like on the margin of my paper in my notebook. And afterwards, I'd go back and just spend 2 hours on Google, just Googling stuff.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want to speak up and be like, hey, I don't know what you are talking about, but like I was just like learning as I went on the fly, but kind of the same idea, I guess.
It is, and if you really want to diversify your knowledge of acronyms, go work in Los Angeles, Texas, and then Miami, and boy oh boy, it's fun. Go work for the city of Los Angeles, and then everywhere in Texas, and down there in Miami. The industry gets pretty small. It's pretty funny.
It does, and like, I mean, even just equipment. You know, like what do you call the big forklift with the tires that picks up like 10,000 pounds? What do you call that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Lowell.
Or Lowell, Skytrax, extendable forklifts. Like,
okay, well, yeah, you can do. Yeah, there's 30,000 pound Skytrax, and there's just telehandlers. There's there's it's good. That's a good point. Yeah, the nomenclature changes from area to. You know, we just had a conversation yesterday about this. About what do you call a motograder or a blade or a maintainer? You know, people grow up at different times, different generations.
Yeah, I've heard. You know, you probably don't have it much in like the civil world, but like when you're building a vertical building, you'll have like the temporary elevator on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I always heard everybody call it buck hoist. And I got the project now, and they got one, and I called it buck hoist. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I was like, the temporary elevator. It's like, what'd you say? I was like, a buck hoist? Like, I don't know what it means. That's what I always heard it called. And they were like, oh, you mean the material hoist? And I was like, sure. Whatever you want to call
it. We call it an elevated lift platform.
It's so funny, man.
So
like, you could have a career's worth of experience. You go to a new geography location, and like you don't even know what you're doing anymore. It feels like sometimes.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, it was a real eye opener was going from a non-labor work environment to a labor work environment, to a union environment. That was a change of pace because I never got yelled at for getting on a Skytrack and unloading material. Boy, oh boy, you pick up a hammer, you're going to get yelled at, and it's a strict yelling.
Yeah,
you're affecting somebody's labor unit there.
Yeah, you just took food out of some kid's mouth is what you did.
Exactly right. So, but
what other tips you got for the next generation? You got anything else?
You know, in my industry, I mean, typically we don't. I mean, like right now, I'm working more local because I'm working for a smaller outfit, and the company owners are really excited about going up to building the company to the next level. But if anybody that chooses to go on the heavy civil and transportation path and chase big mega project jobs, it's tough. I mean, it can like I said, if you want to commit yourself to really understanding a lot of different types of structures, a lot of different work environments, a lot of different types of builds, the opportunities are there, but it can overload you. But if you can manage it, it's great. There's no shortage of problems to solve, and that's somebody like myself. That's give me the biggest and baddest and most complex problem, and I want to solve it, right? But at the same time, it's very important that you keep a good attitude, and be respectful with your coworkers. That also plays a game, because at the end of the day, being respectful to your coworkers and your owners, that's going to tell people what they need to know about you as an individual. And luckily, I've had the opportunity. I've worked with great superintendents, great management, and some of the smartest people in the world when it comes to engineering. And I've been to so many different jobs because I was requested. The company wanted me to go, or the owner wanted me to be there, so that's why I spent 2 years on a job, a year on a job, or pushing a job, whatever the case may be. So keeping a good reputation is a big deal, because like I said, when you work in just a state, the industry gets smaller and smaller. You tend to be working with the same people, and sometimes they're your inspectors, sometimes they're your CEIs, sometimes you're your designer. Sometimes they're representing the owner. So it's a very small industry. So always be respectful, and always be mindful of that you might be working with this guy on the next job or the next subcontractor, and keeping a good rapport and a good reputation is it goes a long way, because you want to be requested. You want to be,
That's a good feeling when it happens.
Huh?
That sounds like a really great feeling when it happens too.
Oh, it is. It is. It is a good feeling.
It's funny because like I mean I found it here in the commercial world. I mean in the heavy civil world too. It's like it's such a small industry. Like you may be working coast to coast, but you see the same people over and over.
You do, and you end up making the same phone call. Say, hey, remember me from this project?
Yeah, you don't want to be the asshole from the last project that they didn't.
I'm back. Yeah, it's
Well,
me again. Hi.
And that's what I was going to say, Matt, was just that you never know who you're going to run into again. And more than likely, you probably will in the industries that we work in, because there's very few people that are actual experts in what they do. And if they're not, they don't stick around very long.
Yeah.
So the ones that stick around are usually the ones you keep seeing over and over again, and it just keeps happening.
You know what's another thing was we see a lot of we'll see a lot of generation, a lot of the older generation. There's been a succession coming on, about the younger generation taking over some of the senior management positions, and there's always a lot of opportunity because the industry isn't as staffed as it used to be, or it's not as staffed as it needs to be. So I tell you what, if you chose a civil engineering career these days, you can do whatever you want. You can live wherever you want. You can build. The opportunities are there. I mean, to me, that's one of the safest career paths you can choose. When I graduated, it was 2008 or 2009, and luckily I jumped on a big mega project here outside of Austin, and then haven't had any concern about having opportunities ever. So it's safe. It's as safe as you can get.
Especially right now, they're pumping a lot of money. All the government's pumping a lot of money into infrastructure, and the infrastructure is falling apart because it was all built 60, 70 years ago, and so it's all in need of repair. So
you're talking about
a safe place to be.
It is. I mean, Texas is a great place to be too, because these cities are never stop growing. The infrastructure, mainly the interstate infrastructure that's been developed back in, was it Eisenhower in the 50s?
Yeah,
it's hitting its lifespan. There's always a need. There's always a need for expansion and growth. I mean, actually, we're talking about some of the work coming on between Austin and San Antonio on I-35, and I-35 is going to be under construction for 20 straight years. We sat in the Texas transportation meeting at the Capitol building, and they were promoting a $650 million project. And then when the chairman said, "Oh, how long is this new build supposed to last for?" And they go, 15 years. We're like, these structures are good for 75 years lifespan, but you're only building it to be managed the next 15 years. Come on, let's put some lanes in there, and that's like continuous construction. Let's do this, guys. Come on. The budgets are there. The budgets are there. Federal funding's there. The state funding's there.
That's like, I used to live off I-35 in Austin, and now I'm off I-45 in Houston. And it's a joke I had, because I think this thing's been under construction forever. And I think it runs from the stretch I'm on, it runs from Houston down to Galveston Island. And I think what they do is they expand the lanes. They start from the north, head down to the island. By the time they get there, it's overgrown again. They got to start back up the north and expand the lanes. And it's just never ending.
It's tough. It's tough to see too. And property acquisitions isn't getting any easier. And
no.
You're having a fourth loop around Houston.
Yeah, it's coming. It's actually coming right by my house, and I don't really understand that either, because they've been announced. They don't own the property yet, but they've been announcing that this is coming through here. I'm like, are you going to buy the property, or are you just going to what's happening?
Yeah, it's fun. So, no, we're eager for the next generation. The next generation they have good ideas, and we work in a very literal type of work environment where it's go get the work done. But one thing I really do encourage the next generation too is that they have talents. And I tell you what, I've been surprised with some of the spreadsheets these guys make, and data analysis, data collecting, and like analytics, and creating different ways of seeing things and knowing things. They have some tools and some understanding that now I guess I start referring to myself as an older generation. I feel like, but using these guys for their talents is another thing that we need to focus on too. it's teaching the guys in the field, how to handle iPads and managing costs on, technology is just as good as, it's only good if you use it. But some of these younger engineers have really surprised me on how they can manage data.
It's funny
and efficiently and easy too.
It's funny you're talking about feeling like an older guy now, because like there was a point in time when I would always have to help our superintendents with their computers and their iPads and show them how they work and all that sort of stuff. And then I hit like 35 years old, and now I can't get my printer to sync up to I can't get my computer to sync up to the printer anymore. And like I have no patience. I just go poke at it. And, like I don't know what to do.
So.
Well, Jess, before you kind of leave the topic about the next generations, you talked a little bit earlier about systems, and specifically about how one of your systems is using SketchUp. It helps you visualize, it helps you go through the sequence as you learn the documentation, learn the project. I mean, I have my own systems too. I look through the drawings. I generally like to start with the equipment in my projects and then kind of work out the piping, work through the architecture, the structure from there. That's just my approach. Are there any other systems that you think would be useful or helpful for others to know about, and they can consider for themselves? What other kind of stuff do you like to do?
As far as systems, you mean softwares and supporting?
No, just your general process for how you get involved with a project, get familiar with the new project, get familiar with the work that has to take place, or anything like that might be helpful.
Yeah. Well, going back to basics too, is that when you walk into a job, it's when you walk into a job, it's important to understand two of the biggest things: where's the money at, and where's it coming from, and schedule. And so understanding schedule. Most of our heavy civil transportation projects, they all dwell in P6, Primavera P6, which that is a career path in itself these days. Because some of our schedules are pretty massive, and so there's somebody's working through the schedules at all times. But when you come into a job, understand your milestones, understand your production rates, and understand where the money's coming from, because the last thing you want to be doing is spending money you don't have, and those are big deals. But I mean, that's pretty standard for construction in general, right? And cost management. I guess what other systems would you think about using?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're basically hitting it on the head here, because I'm just thinking about a new generation getting onto a job site. Maybe it's for the first time, or maybe it's just a new experience for them. Maybe it's the biggest project they've ever been on, and it can be really overwhelming. I mean, there's so many things to consider, especially you got the schedule, you got the budget, you got safety you got to think about, you've got just even the design scope and the bid packages that who knows where those are at. But regardless, there's just so much that can be taken in, and you can almost get like the paralysis, where there's just so much I don't even know where to begin. So, it's nice to have some thoughts or some processes about maybe breaking that down, bite-sized chunks, step by step at a time. So, just kind of wonder if you had any other tips or tricks like that work well for you, or that you're seeing that work really well for newer people.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got a bit of a very, I'm not the best multitasker, and some people are, some people aren't. And so I have a general rule of thumb: if everything's critical, then nothing's critical. Start over. And so I tell you what, one of my favorite practices, and when exactly for what you said, when my young engineers or myself would get overwhelmed, I take my list of to-do items and I say, pick 3. If you get those done today, you're in good shape. If you get more done, do more. But pick 3, get those done. Pick 3 the next day, get those done. Just always try to hit a target. Whether it's getting submittals in, tracking or uploading invoices to a log. You got to think little tasks here and there, because let's say invoices. I'm sure you all have approved some invoices in your time. If you wait till the end of the month, well, you have 300 invoices, and that's going to take you a while, and then you have no time to fix them. If you don't claim quantities correctly, and then all of a sudden you get sick a day, well, you've affected the cost report. Oh, good. Okay. But no, pick create little battles, create little milestones, and try to check these things off the list. Because it is very easy to get distracted. It's very easy to, get, demoralized or something. Something's going to bring you down that day. try to get little things done, little things at the big things, rather than trying to prioritize a whole list, because then the list keeps growing as you're trying to prioritize. So there's a lot of learning practice. There's a lot of life learning practices, in construction too. Because like you said, the bigger the project, the more issues, the more fires, the more emotions, the more attitudes. Sky's the limit. You just got to learn to roll with the punches a little bit.
Well said. Some great advice there. Yeah.
So,
kind of going back to the original topic of innovating to improve constructability. You got any like good examples of a time when you had a real innovative idea that really helped maybe even just get the building or get the roadway and bridge constructed? Maybe that you had a major issue or something like a think outside the box type of example.
I was trying to think about this afternoon. I was like, I got a lot of little examples too, and let's say, for instance, particularly there was on one of my last projects, and we're doing a big cable stay bridge or tied arch bridge, 6 big arches, and soon it's going to redefine the skyline of a major city, aka Miami. This was probably the most complicated concrete structure that, many people have seen. A lot of people in our industry seen. It's just riddled with custom geometries. It's hollow precast arch segments that's erected up to your 6 arches that tie into a big center pier in the middle. And you talk about a project with opportunities to be innovative. That was the big one, and I spent 2 years on. And so we actually had to develop a form casting or form system to manage, number one, 10,000 psi concrete, number two, 40 foot of head pressure, and for concrete that was SCC, self-consolidating concrete. So you're talking about a lot of liquid head, so it had to be really stout, and it had to be cast on an angle, 30 to 45 degree angle. So basically, you're building an elevator shaft at 30 to 45 degrees. Well, an elevator shaft formwork, self-traveling, just goes up, right? Pretty simple. I don't know what size lifts it is, but so we had to work with our formwork supplier to invent a handset form system that guys could manage from the inside of the core, and it could handle that extreme pressure. Well, we had to go to a different material. Steel's too heavy, too big. Wood's not good enough. So we went to 1 inch thick, FBR or fiberboard. So it's like a fiberglass board. So we were part of the development of getting that first form type rushed through R&D and put into the market. That was a little example. That was a good one. But a lot of times it comes into, we have shoring towers that are 150 to 300 feet in the air. How do we want them assembled? How can we reuse them? How can we, be better with our resources here? Well, let's add some extra holes and let's make it universal rather than just all custom. That was a big step. How do we use our form resources better by sharing? Or a lot of times it comes down to sharing. How many more resources do we need to being innovative like that? So for a big project that's 45 or 40 miles across with 4 major interchanges, when you're working in 3 different segments of the project, just communication, coming up with a plan of how we can share resources rather than spending $2 extra million on forms that you use 3 times and I use 3 times and he uses 1 time. That's a plan. That's cost savings. That's innovation. Innovation, being innovative doesn't just mean what cool LiDAR system comes out now and what new software are we using to do this. That's not always innovation. Just thinking around the problem, solving a bigger problem, thinking around the problem. Is there a better way to look at this? Is there a better way to manage this? Innovation is a bit of an open topic. One of my favorite ones was I took some EFCO steel plate girder systems, and I was talking about the farm equipment topic earlier. We wanted to do some precast caps just for some simple floodplain bridges. Well, so I went and got some hydraulic lift wheels for farm equipment that I used back in my past when I was 18, slapped them on the sides of this form system, put a hitch on the front of it with open, with hydraulics hooked up to a tractor to lug around and pull down a line, and just created my own precasting bed. But No one told me to do it, but I knew I could make precast caps a lot better. So we did that. I literally bought a secondhand set of lift assist wheels from farm supply store. So
It's funny though, because I mean you're right. A lot of times innovation, it's not going to be something you put in your resume. It's not going to be inventing a new form system and a new fiber board, 1-inch thick fiber board that you can like bring to market and all that stuff. A lot of times it's just the day in day out things of like, just make this thing a little bit better and tweak it a little bit more.
That's it. And it takes a certain person. And I've met some pros at it too, that they go out there, let's do it this way, and then it works. And you're like, wow, this was not a course in college. This was not a basic skill that the company wants us to learn. No. That's what drives me. That's why I can't get enough of the industry, because the opportunities are out there. And now I'm moving personally into taking a lot of these ideas and creating patents. And then maybe it'll hit, maybe it won't. But
that's exciting, man.
My God, that's gonna be the trial. So,
are you guys in the heavy civil world? Have y'all been hit as hard as kind of maybe the building construction world is when it comes to like long lead time items and unavailability of materials?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Electricians. I mean, there's a lot of industry inconsistencies right now, and across the country. I mean, the biggest one is skilled labor force too. A lot of your electronics equipment have a lot of lead time. Luckily we're kind of out of the steel, the inconsistencies with the steel market. I lived through those pretty hard with when you call the mill and you want to get steel beams, and all of a sudden they can't lock down pricing, and you're trying to create no. I mean, they can't guarantee pricing for more than a day. Like, just charge me whatever you want, I guess. And then having to go to owners and explain situations. I tell you what, that's part of the job that you never thought you'd have to spend 30-40% of your time just explaining that the market is inconsistent and pricing is going up, and boy, oh boy. But I mean, like you said, the biggest players for ours isn't so much material right now, but it's labor and skilled labor force. Y'all see the same thing too?
Yeah. I mean, there's things like generators. Like if you order a generator today, maybe you'll get it by 2025. Hold your breath. Those things are taking 72 weeks at the high end. Anything electrical, because the damn electricians are causing problems everywhere. But like, switch gears and everything else. But even getting like air handlers, like the project I'm on right now, air handlers are supposed to ship, and then all of a sudden they didn't ship. We said, what's going on? Like, yeah, they didn't ship. When are they going to ship? Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, you'll get them when you get them, type thing. And then we were told, like, because they were coming, I guess from Mexico, and they're like, all right, they're in customs. I'm like, okay, cool. And then next week found out like they haven't even shipped yet. You're like, it's just stuff like that. You're like, what is going on? You can't get a straight answer from anybody, and
that's tough. A lot of times, I mean, previous projects I've had to deal with overseas materials, stay ducts, different types of precast yard form systems being built overseas and maybe in China. Some equipment has been modified from China. Now, I haven't had to deal with that through much of the COVID period or anything like that, but what we do see a lot of issues in our industry too is because we'll use outside rent cranes or even our own cranes and our own equipment. If it's built from overseas or if it's a foreign made crane, man, it's hard to get parts for some of this equipment right now. I mean, even tires for a truck crane, or it's you can't even speak intelligent on it because you don't know what's going on in that country. So, boy, oh boy, I love explaining that one.
Yeah, our crane's broken down, and I don't know when I'm going to get a tire for it. Like, what?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, I'm hoping that we're on the tail end of a lot of these different economies going through struggles, including our own, and coming out of this decline or this issue period, hopefully. But I tell you what, things are changing. and we got to figure out ways to solve the problems that we didn't have 10 years ago.
At least it seems like all the pricing starting to settle out anyway, where it's not increasing every month. You're getting a letter that X product is increased another 15, 20%. You know,
I tell you what, 10 years ago, concrete it was cheap compared to now. I mean, now it's like we're paying what for 3,200 psi concrete?
it's wild, man.
I think the gold
Well,
flakes out of it.
I'm pretty sure I heard that. Was it actually today that the World Health Organization announced that end of the pandemic?
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, what that means is, come Monday, all the problems will be fixed, guys. I mean, we'll be in good shape.
It's gonna take them maybe 2 days to work it out, but yeah, we'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll hold on to that. Okay.
Don't hold
Matt, your rooftop units will be there probably on Tuesday morning then.
I'm not gonna hold my breath.
So, no, but new problems that weren't existent 10 years ago, and now they're major distractions and major problems. You can either let it define you, or you can work to define it.
That's a good way to look at it, man. It's I just speaking of being innovative, like, you know, we've had to do things like order the switchgear for a building while we're still in design, right? In a normal building, and so we had to pull that out and then basically just design the building around it. Be like, this is what's coming. So finish your design because you're getting this thing, you know, because we had to order it 3 months ago just to get it on time. You know,
exactly right. Managing resources differently rather than waiting for when the project starts. Well, if you need, say, precast box culverts, and there's no one's cranking them out fast enough, or you're going to pay 200% over, market price. Well, why don't we start buying them now? Because we know they're going to be on the next job somewhere, holding on to the documentation, and here, bazinga, now you got box culverts on time. Same concept. I mean,
there was
it's managing resources and forecasting. I mean, buying futures in steel. I know some suppliers, they'll buy futures in steel. That way they can accurately, track costs rather than having to go through the inflation, market inflations.
That's pretty smart too.
Yeah. People do that with fuel. People do that with, you have a big enough company that can buy futures. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Well, the material side is really interesting because in the last couple of years, there's been a big change that I've seen in our part of the industry, where it used to be people were like the manufacturers, the owners. They would even go buy their own materials and save some costs. But nowadays, you might buy them ahead of time just because of lead time, just because you need to get them on time, like you're saying, Matt. So it used to be cost driven. Now it's just all schedule and unpredictability driven, really.
Right. Yeah, and it's tough when you have a big complex schedule, especially with phase work and heavy civil, highway and transportation. Not getting street lights in is a big deal. That's a pretty significant stage or milestone that needs to happen to allow other avenues of work to open up. Can't have it. Can't do that. And then you're panicking, trying to call around and have people do favors for you, and it's part of the job you didn't think you'd have to be doing, but now it's pretty normal now.
Yeah.
So hopefully that shakes out and we get back to a little bit more normality soon.
Yeah, definitely so.
There by Monday, like Kyle said.
Yeah, by Monday. Yeah.
Give them till Tuesday, guys. Come on.
So we're inching up on an hour, Jess.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you kind of want to put out there, kind of for the next generation to know or do or think about? You hit on a lot of good stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it's an evolving market, and a evolving career, and job. And there's no shortage of problems to solve, man. That's the driver. So
I worked with a guy for a while, and he would always, his catchphrase was like, he's like, these are good problems because they're solvable problems.
Yeah,
so that stuck with me. So.
One of my favorite quotes that I like to leave my guys with is a Henry Ford quote, and he says, it's actually posted on my office wall. It says, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
That's a good one. I love that one too.
That's one of my favorites. But I look at it every day. I'm like, okay. I gotta be outside the box and not be crazy. All right. Come on.
That's good.
You got to be a little crazy sometimes.
Right. Oh, yeah. You gotta be crazy to do what you love. I tell you what.
So, Jess, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or anything, do you got a way, or do you just not want to be contacted?
No, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. You can hit me on LinkedIn. And then also my email address, jess.rosen13@gmail.com, and that's on LinkedIn as well. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me for questions and tell me I'm crazy or join my crazy train or whatever you want.
Right on, man. You got anything else, Kyle?
No, I just want to put a word out there. Be nice to your local Sparkies, everybody. I mean, don't listen to these guys hating on us all the time. We aren't that bad.
Go cry in your goose down pillow that costs $400 at Bed Bath & Beyond. Your money counting fools.
There's a change order coming your way, Jess.
Don't be calling him for light poles.
We'll put that in the round filing bin over here.
Ooh, I think the lead time for copper just went up.
No, guys, really appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, I've been listening to a few of your podcasts, and this is really interesting, and really enjoy some of the guests y'all have on there, and appreciate the time y'all gave me, and really hope this podcast really starts catching wind and really does start supporting next generations, because the information's there. Let's just be communicative and support each other.
I appreciate that, man, and thanks again for taking some time and joining us today.
Heck yeah, Jess. Thanks, man. It was great.
Fun.
Cool. Till next time, guys. See you later.
All right. Adios.